Serious. Redditors who accidentally killed someone. How has it impacted your life? My dad is a garbage truck driver in a major city. A few years ago, there was a dead and crushed homeless man found at the dump. They went through the camera footage and the tickets for the trucks coming and going and narrowed it down to my dad's truck who dumped the man. The guy was sleeping in a dumpster. For those of you that don't know, there's a packer blade in the back of those trucks to squish the garbage to make more room. He didn't stand a chance. I thought I did for almost 2 years. Very close friend of mine, the kind of guy that always seemed to be happy and everybody just loved him, was hanging out at his place. We were 16 back then, and for whatever reason I don't remember, I showed him how to tie the hangman's knot. Fucked me up badly. My friend was dead. I never saw anything coming, and apparently it was even my fault. Almost 2 years later, we found out by coincidence that he killed himself with exhaust fumes in his mom's car. I'll never know why he did it, which still haunts me sometimes, or why his mom blamed me with wrong accusations. Never could be. Angry about that though, given how painful that must have been for her, or how she knew about that stupid knot. I asked my college roommate to drive my car since I was tired, not sure what happened as I was asleep, but he ended up hitting an oncoming vehicle head-on at around 60 miles per hour. I was the only survivor. His parents were extremely helpful in forcing me to accept that it wasn't my fault, but my heart breaks regularly for his lost potential. He was an incredible guy and would have done great things, I'm sure of it. The hospital I was doing renovations at hired an engineer to calculate how many years it would take for the steam lines to cool down, enough for them to demo. They didn't like the answer they got, so they lied about the numbers to another engineer who gave them a better calculation. During the renovation, the demo company went out of business, so the general contractor asked us to demo the old steam line. Things were great for around 2 hours until the deeply buried steam pushed enough of the water head up enough that it could start making decent progress to the surface. We reported that something was wrong, but the hospital maintenance team essentially told us to go fuck ourselves. And eventually, 1.5 hours later, the water started working its way out. We were hauling 100-gallon barrels of water out of the building 2 at a time, while the water kept coming out faster and hotter. By the time we were able to get a cap that could fit around the pipe, high-pressure steam was coming out strong enough that it wasn't visible for a good 1.75 miles from the pipe. In layman's terms, it was hot enough to instantly strip the flesh off your bone and almost hot enough to instantly burn through your bones. There was no capping that pipe. So sure enough, thousands of gallons of very old oily and filthy steam flooded the hospital. Dozens of people died due to infections and unsanitary conditions, mostly people who were too critical of condition to move. There was an attempt to sue us, then the engineer, but it was very quickly proven that everything was caused by gross negligence on the hospital's part and was promptly swept under the rug. It's painful looking back on it with hindsight. If I knew what I did now, I would have kicked down the maintenance office door and beat the shit out of those two-faced assholes before taking a cap that they had on hand, a good one. 5 hours before it was too late to do anything, and dozens of people, including children, would still be alive. I know it's not my fault. I know that I did everything I could have done with the knowledge I had at the time, and I saved a person from getting badly hurt or possibly killed. But there was so much time and so many things that so many people did wrong. Any one of them doing one thing better, and the whole nightmare would have never happened. This happened to my uncle back in the 1970s. He was coming home from work one night in a snowstorm and turned onto his road. His house was on the other side of a hill. He climbed the hill, and as he started descending the other side, he heard kids screaming and yelling. Brakes were useless. He ran over a 10-year-old kid who was sledding down the hill in the middle of the road and killed him. It was his next-door neighbor. There was no charge against him. Nobody sued him, because it was clear that it was a freak accident. Even the kid's parents told him it was not his fault. However, my uncle, 53 years old, Abe Pugh, U2 USMC combat veteran of the Pacific War, previously strong-willed, clear-headed, and not a drinker, drank himself to death in less than a year. Tragic all the way around. Happened to a friend. They were a group of adventure influencers who do a lot of stuff like cliff jumping and cave diving and filming themselves. All strong athletes and very fit. They were trying to get some kind of a waterfall jump. One of them either slipped or misjudged the undertow of a cliff dive area, a very big no-no. She went in and didn't come back, getting sucked under the water and down to a larger pool. Her boyfriend freaked out and jumped in after her, trying to save her. He also didn't come up. Another friend also dived in and also didn't make it. The couple who went down eventually had their bodies recovered miles down the river. All three died. This was a hockey accident when I was 19. I'm 36 now. I shot a low slap shot, and there was a net battle, and my friend on the other team got shoved, fell over, and the puck hit him in his temple and shattered much of the structure. He died later because of the bone fragments in his brain. I stopped playing for a long time after that. Now I play men's league and wear his number. Edit. Didn't expect to receive tons of comments and DMs. They're a lot to reply to and really heavy to remember. Emotions came up that I haven't felt in almost 20 years. I'm really thankful for the outreach. I ask that we show this kind of love to people in person. When I was 16, I was going home from work late at night and needed to swing by the gas station. I was getting ready to make a left turn into the station and waited for a few motorcycles to pass, and I looked down the road to clear the turn and saw a single light from a motorcycle about a mile away, so I went ahead and made the turn. About halfway through the turn, I saw the light getting brighter and noticed the guy was maybe 3 feet away from my car. That's when time began to slow down as I stomped on the gas to try to get out of the way. It was unfortunately too late, as his body hit the side of my car, completely shoving to the side. I got out, and he just laid crushed in the street. The gas station was very busy, so a crowd immediately formed around the man, and cops and ambulance came. He died a few hours later in the hospital. After the accident, I just sat on the side of the road thinking, well, I'm going to prison. I just killed a dude. Very much in shock, and a bystander came up to me and said, "Do you see what you did? Go see what you did." I wasn't really responsive at this time. After detectives came and talked to people, I found out the guy was going well over 150 km/h on a bike, trying to catch up to his friends. And when I pulled out, he didn't slow down, but apparently ditched his bike, and only his body hit my car. Turns out if he stayed on his bike, he would have missed me completely. I was bothered for some time, but I've come to accept that this kind of crazy shit happens. Just have to carry on. 10th story throwaway, because I don't want this getting linked to my main account. I was actually going to tell this story on another thread a couple weeks ago, but deleted it. I used to be an airline pilot for a relatively large regional airline. Because I didn't make much money doing it, I worked as a flight instructor on my days off from the airline. One day, a student of mine and I were up practicing some maneuvers over an area with a lot of trees. As we were finishing up and about to go back to the airport, our engine started acting weird. It was a bit rough, and we lost RPM. No big deal, I thought. I figured we were just running the mixture too lean, so I enriched it and had no improvement. I started heading towards a field we passed a couple miles back. It wasn't big, but it was our best shot if things got worse, as the airport was something like 15 miles away. The engine only got worse. I was having trouble maintaining altitude, and I radioed in a mayday call with our position. Eventually, the engine died completely. I tried a restart, but nothing worked. As we were lining up our final approach, we made sure the airplane was secured and all that. Turns out the field was a lot smaller than I thought. We touched down, and it was extremely rough. I had a lot of pressure on the brakes, trying to not lock them. The trees were coming up very fast, and I decided we weren't going to stop. So I tried to get the airplane back on its front wheels and slam on the brakes to make it flip so we could at least stop. I thought about it too late, and we smashed straight into a big tree. I can't remember very clearly getting out, But I do remember seeing my student in the front seat slouched over with his head to the side. I tried to yell for him to get out and realized his eyes were open. The local police arrived within minutes of us touching down, and later, they said they saw us coming in. They got my student out and took me to a hospital to be looked at and x-rayed because I had bad pain in my neck and back. They pronounced my student dead at the scene. His neck snapped on impact. I didn't have any legal action taken against me or anything. The NTSB and FAA said that I did the right thing in the situation. I just wish I could have gotten the plane flipped over. I feel guilty. His wife blamed me and tried suing me. I have extreme anxiety and don't fly anymore. I wish I could bring myself to do it because I truly loved it. I work construction now because I have always loved building stuff and fixing up the house. I'm 36 years old now and have it on my bucket list to fly one last time. About 5 years ago, I hit an old lady in the street while I was on my motorcycle. I believe she was dead on the scene, but wasn't pronounced dead until the hospital. I wasn't drinking or speeding. She just ran across the street chasing the bus. I'll always remember the instant she turned to look at me before I hit her. It definitely shook me up, and I'm rather sensitive to crossing the street, especially jaywalking or outside of a crosswalk. Every once in a while I get flashbacks and kind of shudder, just remembering everything, replaying it over and over. I still live near where it happened and have to drive the street occasionally. I always am cautious now in areas with lots of pedestrians, watching carefully to make sure no one is crossing. I think it didn't help that at the spot I hit her, I've had cars or people try to cross before, cutting me off. I remember the day it happened, I was driving slower than I might usually, because I knew it was a trouble spot. There's still that what if I hadn't driven it, or what if I saw her before she started crossing. I'll always have that with me. Knowing she died and her kids and grandkids never saw her again. Knowing she was just trying to get to work to provide for her family, only to get killed by someone else on his way to work. It sucks. I've never spoken to her family, though her son was at the scene that day, and I can't imagine what they went through. But I hope they know it wasn't intentional or negligent on my part, and I hope they are doing okay. Sometimes I imagine what it would be like to meet them. I don't know what I would say or do.